Annie Lennox burst onto the international stage in the early 1980s as part of Eurythmics. The British synth-pop duo, also featuring Dave Stewart, was at the forefront of pop music's new wave, and Lennox's appearance in the Sweet Dreams video, close-cropped, bright orange hair and a bold men's suit and tie, created a captivating image that, when paired with her astonishing soulful voice, was impossible to forget. After several more hits with Eurythmics, Lennox went solo in the 1990s and became one of the most successful and awarded female British artists of the past 50 years. Over her career, she has won 8 Brit Awards, 4 Grammys, an MTV Music Video Award, Billboard Century Award, an Oscar, and a Golden Globe. She is also a passionate and celebrated philanthropist. So join us for this special Patreon-sponsored episode of The Great Pop Culture Debate as we attempt to name the best Annie Lennox song. Hey, is this my turn? You want me to sing now? Okay, I'm going to spare you the screaming. I'm your host, Rezsnyak, and I genuinely do need a man. On that note, please welcome the Patreon sponsor for this episode. He walked on broken glass to make this episode happen. I just have one question for Derek Makita. Why?
What can I say? Annie put a spell on me, and now I'm hers.
Work, diva. We have 2 special guest panelists for this episode. We could not do an Annie Lennox episode without some bona fide British representation, so please welcome back to the podcast Ashleigh Stiles, host at our UK-based network, Wizard Radio. Hi, Ashleigh.
Hi, Eric. I've traveled the world in the 7 seas to be here, by which I mean traversing time zones. Thanks for having me.
She literally has. Everybody's looking for something. Yeah. And finally, if you hear our next panelist ask, would I lie to you? You can safely assume the answer is a yes. Welcome back, Annie Lennox megafan Todd Rezsnyak.
Now, would I say something that isn't true? Yes.
Yes, he would. He's packed his bags and he's cleaned the floor, which is more than he ever did when we were kids.
That's
and
true.
Up in the producer booth, we have Curtis Creekmore, whose withering stares put Medusa to shame. If you're curious about how we ended up with our bracket, become a Patreon supporter of our little show or listen to the 3-minute preview available wherever you listen to podcasts. And don't forget, you can head to this episode on greatpopculturedebate.com to find the listener bracket, as well as the 16 nominated songs. While you're there, check out some of our related episodes, including Best Tina Turner Song, Best Cover Song, and Best Solo Musician to Come Out of a Band, all available at greatpopculturedebate.com. With that out of the way, let's put a little love in our hearts and get into these debates. First up, the panel has unanimously decided to advance 1-seed Sweet Dreams Are Made of This by the Eurythmics, meaning that 4-seed There Must Be an Angel Playing With My Heart has been locked out of heaven. But Todd, you wanted to speak on Angel briefly.
Yeah, the only thing I want to say is I can't imagine anything knocking out Sweet Dreams Are Made of This in the first round. It's a little unfortunate because this is a good song, but it certainly doesn't compare. To me, it's like a slow build. It's a slow burn. It's a song when I first heard it, wasn't really something that kind of caught my ear. But then as I've gone back and listened to like their greatest hits, I've picked up an appreciation for it. I think that there's something interesting with Eurythmics, where you have some stuff that's very like pop, very radio friendly oriented, but then you also have a lot of songs that really aren't. And Derek talked a little bit about this in the intros, where they have stuff where they have songs that you don't really expect to be chart hits, but they kind of stick with you. And this is one of those. It's just, there was no way it was going to knock out Sweet Dreams.
Yeah, for sure. And also, there's 2 different Angel songs that the Eurythmics has.
Yes.
There Must Be an Angel Playing With My Heart, and then there's Angel, which is a completely different song. I sometimes struggle to keep them apart, but they're both great songs. Thank you very much for speaking on that, Todd. Next, the panel is split between 2-seed Little Bird, a solo hit off of Diva, and 3-seed Missionary Man, a Eurythmics hit off of Revenge. Derek, Mama, tell us where we should go when it comes to Little Bird. Todd, you can fool with your brother. I'm sitting right here, but tell us why we shouldn't mess when it comes to a Missionary Man. Derek, please go first.
Yeah, for me, I think it comes down to personal preference. They're both great songs, right? I just think that Little Bird shows more of Annie's range, whereas Missionary Man feels maybe musically more interesting. In my opinion, it just doesn't give Annie enough to do. It's got some signature soul elements, some interesting runs in the background, but like that's it for me. Little Bird feels more emotionally expressive, which coming on her debut solo album Diva, where she steps out on her own from a creative perspective. I think it's a good blend of intimate versus the powerhouse choruses, which spotlight Annie's layering and harmony work. She feels confident, she feels reflective, she feels triumphant. I'll grant you that Missionary Man was a bigger chart success. I just think Little Bird is more important to her solo work, and that's why it gets my vote here.
Yeah, Todd, talk to us about Missionary Man.
I think Missionary Man, what really strikes me about it is that it's one of those songs where it feels like the Eurythmics really embrace kind of the the harder side of their sound. Oftentimes they played a lot with synths, obviously, and Annie a lot of the time in her solo stuff has been more on the reserve side in terms of the arrangements. And this was a rock song. It charted as a rock hit. They won the Grammy Award for Best Rock Performance by a Duo or Group for it. I'm a sucker for a harmonica. It's a fantastic harmonica solo. And then the backing vocalist, which is interesting that she didn't do her own backing vocals, because a lot of her songs she harmonizes with herself, but the backing vocalist that she has on that song is fantastic, and they complement each other so well. And you can just tell that they're just really enjoying playing this music, playing the song, and it's one of their rockier songs, and I think it should should be recognized as such.
Awesome. Yeah. Also, now I want to do a best harmonica solo debate.
yes.
Wouldn't that be amazing? That would be so much fun.
Half the bracket would be Stevie Wonder, though. So I mean,
or Blues Traveler. God bless
Blues
John
Traveler,
Popper.
Yes, that's so true.
Ashleigh, is it going to be Missionary Man or is it going to be Little Bird?
I think it's going to be Missionary Man. I really like the sort of almost pseudo-country blues rock vibes of Missionary Man. Really does it for me, I think.
I love both of these songs, but if I had to pick one, I would give it to Little Bird just because I think it is such a killer solo hit for her and really helped to establish her as a solo artist. So it's a Patreon-sponsored episode. We're going to go to tiebreakers on this one by the Patreon sponsor, Derek Makita. Which one is moving forward?
I'm sticking with Little Bird. You'll find that this is kind of my rubric through a lot of these brackets, that I put a lot of weight on her solo career, so buckle up.
I put a lot of weight on myself, so game recognized game. Next, it's another even split, this time between iconic 80s duet one seed Sisters Are Doing It For Themselves. I can't say that without doing the gay head bop of shame. And 4-seed Eurythmics comeback single 17 Again. Ashleigh, we really do have doctors, lawyers, and politicians too, but I want you to tell us why Sisters should keep doing it into round 2. I will relive my misspent youth and stump for votes for 17 Again. Ashleigh, please go first.
Sure. First of all, gay head bop of pride, surely. Rather than shame.
Pride. I agree. Thank you.
Speaking of which, Sisters Doing It For Themselves does have those sorts of connotations. My rubric for a lot of these is going to be the new wave stuff, the 80s stuff. I'm such a big fan of that whole musical oeuvre, so that is a big sort of part of why I like it. It's pulsing, it's upbeat, it's great for what it does, so for me that's kind of why it swings in that direction.
And just to clarify, this is the duet that she did with Aretha Franklin.
Yes, big clarification. She does, there's a couple of duets on this list.
Yep.
I think it really lets, her solo stuff is obviously very, very good, but with the duets as well, it gives it a different way to express her vocal qualities when it's bouncing off of someone else.
100. And just a sidebar, you can tell an artist's artist by how they collab with other people. And Annie Lennox has collaborated with so many people. You can tell how respected she is. And rightfully so. I don't think we've even really touched on one of the best female pop voices. Actually, I'm going to say female voices, period, because she does more than pop, of recent history.
100%.
In my opinion. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I'm going to talk a little bit about 17 Again. So this song is off of the Eurythmics comeback album 1999 Peace, which bizarrely is now over 25 years old, and that total mindfuck. Thanks so much for that this morning, Annie Lennox. That said, to me, it still feels very early 2000s as a music piece. And that, I guess you could say, it was kind of ahead of its time. As much of the Eurythmics have been through their whole career, they were really pushing the boundaries of what music is sounding like. So this is a lovely, wistful song as the artists look back on the lessons they've learned in their career. Quote, all those fake celebrities and all those vicious queens, present, all the stupid papers and those stupid magazines. Sweet dreams are anything that gets you in the scene. It's explicitly about what it takes to become famous and to work in this bizarre world of pop music. But I think the lyrics resonate with anyone who's at that midpoint in their life and they're looking back on what they've already done and wondering, where do I go from here? I love Annie's voice in the song because it's so different from almost any other song she's done. It's contemplative, it's more conversational than her normal vocal, which is usually so bold, it slaps you in the face, and this is more just very lilting, very beautiful, very reserved. I think it's a great piece, but I understand why Sisters Are Doing It For Themselves should move forward. Derek, which one are you going to go with here?
Yeah, I'm with the duet here. I think her the way that she plays with Aretha in the song is just masterful.
Yeah. Todd, is going to be Sisters or is it going to be 17 Again?
17 Again.
So we are tied, and the tiebreaker would now shift to Ashleigh alphabetically. Which one's moving forward here, Ashleigh?
I'm going to go for my pick. I'm going to go for Sisters Doing It For Themselves.
They are doing it and doing it, doing it. There's the head bop again. Head bop. If you're not watching this on YouTube, you should be. Yeah, I'm not mad about that at all. If you have not listened to Peace, the comeback album from 1999, please go do so. I know a lot of bands that break up and do reunion music. It's pretty. This is a great album, 100% worth your time. So check that out. Next, no fibbing. It's another unanimous decision by the panel to move forward 2-seed Would I Lie to You, which means the mana has run out for 3-seed I Put a Spell on You. Derek, you wanted to speak on Spell briefly.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously one of Annie's covers, this time coming from the 2014 Nostalgia album. I think that it's probably one of the better covers on that album, in my opinion. I think it more than holds its own to the Jay Hawkins original version. But I don't see how it could go up against Would I Lie to You and win. So it's understandably out here.
Yeah, there have been a million covers of that song by Screamin' Jay Hawkins. This is the best one, in my opinion. It's better than the original, which Annie does a lot, so suck on that.
Yeah. Yep.
All right, 3/4 of the panel is putting on its rubbers and splashing around with 1-seed Eurythmics hit Here Comes the Rain Again. But I'm putting on my rubbers and sleeping around with 4-seed I Need a Man. Let me share why I am desperate for this song to continue. I am mystified by this, truly. I'm mystified how Rain is a 1-seed, how I Need a Man is a 4-seed, and I don't understand how I am the only person on this panel voting for I Need a Man when it is a gay slut anthem, and I am staring directly at Derek and Todd because j'accuse whores.
I have a man.
But you could use another one. All right, man. I Need a Man is an absolute banger of a track. It's off of 1988's Savage. It hit number 26 on the UK charts and number 46 on the Billboard in the US. The opening of the song is brash, bratty, ballsy, with Lennox asking if everyone wants her to sing now. The answer is always yes, Annie. And then she goes through a list of things that she does and does not want in a man. And I think this is where we're getting into some trouble in 2020s because much of it is heteronormative bullshit, and I get why that's a big turnoff to folks. But there are other messages we can all still agree on. She don't want no muscle-bound cheapskates or low-down woman haters. Yes, ma'am. I think Here Comes the Rain Again is a perfectly lovely song, and it was, for sure, a bigger hit, but it doesn't slap me across the face the way I Need a Man does. Also, every time I hear it, I think she's saying, here comes Lorraine again, like she's totally exasperated at the return of this basic bitch who brings the whole vibe down, and to that I say, there had better be a drag queen named Lorraine again, and she had better be auditioning for Drag Race UK Season 8. Ugh, Here Comes Lorraine again. I'm assuming I haven't swayed anybody. Derek, you're sticking with Rain?
You have not. The notion that this song would go up against Here Comes the Rain Again and win is laughable. I hear everything they're saying from a content perspective, but no.
Ashleigh, you're sticking with Here Comes Lorraine Again?
Yes, I'm with Derek on the return of Lorraine. I think it's just such a, you were baffled at the 1-seed. I'm baffled that it would be anything other than a 1-seed. This is just such a tight, it's the other big Eurythmics song, really. It's so titanic in its sound, that really pulsing synth sort of beeps right the way through and gives it that nice little bass layer. Yeah, love it.
But men, all right, Todd, is it going to be Rain or I Need a Man?
First off, if nobody's going to take Lorraine again as a drag name, I will claim it.
Perfect, thank you. Someone has to do it.
That is phenomenal. Look, I mean, if you look at my bracket, I put Here Comes the Rain Again as my winner. So, sorry, I Need a Man. I got to tell you, between Sweet Dreams and Here Comes Rain, because those are the two obviously like biggest Eurythmic songs, at least in the US. I actually think Here Comes the Rain Again is the better song. It's more complicated. It's more complex. The instrumentation against her vocals, it's a more epic sweeping song. And like, to me, when I think about Eurythmics in the 80s, I actually don't think of Sweet Dreams. I think of Here Comes the Rain Again.
I was 8 years old when I found out that you smoke crack. So this is really exciting for me. All right. Excellent. We will be moving Here Comes the Rain Again into round 2. Next, the bulk of the panel actually has plenty of things to say in favor of 2-seed No More I Love Yous off of Annie's Medusa cover album. But Ashleigh has questions, specifically, how dare we? And also, when it comes to 3-seed Why? Ashleigh, tell us why should advance.
This is one where I'm a little bit wishy-washy here, unfortunately. For me, just No More I Love Yous is just not, it's just not my bag. I don't know what it is about it, but it just didn't tick with me for the right way. So it was more just that Why had more of that 80s synth stuff that I prefer. as opposed to No More I Love Yous. I'm fine with the other one advancing. This is not one that's going to cut me up bad, but it was just, I was picking between the two, and I was like, this one, I think. So I'm not set in stone on this.
It's not like you're walking on broken glass or anything on this one. Yeah.
Quite, no.
I hate that these two songs are up against each other. Each one of these deserve to be in the Elite Eight round. They are really killer songs. Derek, did Ashleigh sway you? Or are you sticking with No More I Love Yous here?
No, I agree that they're both kind of titans of her catalog. I think that No More I Love Yous has a special place in my heart, so that's why I picked it.
Todd, I know you love both of these songs, so which one are you going with?
I have to say, I probably have more of a connection to No More I Love Yous. I remember when that song first came out, and back in the VH1 days and the music video days, I remember seeing the music video, on VH1, and it just really, there was something about it that really struck me. And I'm sure at some point, I mean, we can talk about it now, but I mean, the gender bending and the androgyny that's present in so many of their videos. And I remember in particular with this one, you had these ballerinas, but they were all men and they all had like facial hair. And it was this kind of juxtaposition that smacked you in the face a little bit. That song really resonates with me. That video resonates with me in a way that Why just doesn't, even though it's a terrific song. They're both fantastic. But I got to go with No More I Love Yous for sure.
Yeah, I'm tempted to throw a vote on Why just because it is the lower seed here and it wouldn't matter. I love this song, and it's so like, how many times do I have to tell you? Like, my God, if that is not middle age anthem, I don't know what is. But I can't say no to No More I Love Yous. It's such a good goddamn song, and I think Ashleigh, honestly, to your point, you had to be there. You had to be there when that song was coming out because it sounded like nothing else on the radio at the time. You know what I mean?
Yes, I think perhaps I wasn't there when that song
I think probably you were not. So we will be moving No More I Love Yous into round 2. Next, it's another unanimous victory for 1-seed solo smash Walking on Broken Glass, which means that the panel is breaking up with 4-seed Love Song for a Vampire. Finally, in round 1, the bulk of the panel is thinking of its fellow man and voting for 2-seed duet Put a Little Love in Your Heart. But Derek thinks 3-seed Whiter Shade of Pale sounds about white. Derek, tell us why we shouldn't ghost on Whiter Shade. Please go first.
I mean, look, I love both of these songs, and they're both covers. So not pure Annie in either case. And there is no arguing that Put a Little Love in Your Heart is the bigger commercial success. Where I come down on A Whiter Shade of Pale here is that it feels like Annie had far more influence in how this track turned out. I'm a fan of the Procol Harum original. She takes the source material and makes it feel like her. Uh-huh. There's an emotional subtlety that doesn't exist in the psychedelia of the original, in my opinion. It's also a solo track rather than a duet. And unlike some of her other duets, like with Aretha, this song, Put a Little Love in Your Heart, feels dominated by Al Green. Annie, to me, feels barely there. And we know Annie is more than capable of serving some soul. It just feels like she takes a back seat to Al here. While I'm sure it was intentional that she's complimenting his vocals rather than meeting his level equally, I'm not sure I'm on board with that style choice. On Whiter Shade of Pale, she is better able to showcase her velvety vocals and her emotional range, and that always wins out for me. And on Medusa, which has a lot of reimagined songs covered by Annie, this one stands out as a bright spot.
Yeah, Medusa is a front-to-back, no-skip album. I'm just going to say that right now. It is so good. Todd, is it going to be Whiter Shade of Pale, or is it going to be Put a Little Love in Your Heart?
I actually think I'm going to change my vote to Whiter Shade of Pale. If I were to pick one of the songs to listen to, I probably would listen to Put a Little Love in Your Heart. But since this is the best Annie Lennox song, I think Derek's spot on. Put a Little Love in Your Heart is really dominated by Al Green. And it's kind of a paint by numbers, feel good little pop song that you slapped it. To me, that song is actually more notable for being at the end of the film Scrooged than it is a song on its own. And I got to say that while A Whiter Shade of Pale is fine, I've never really been crazy about the song as it is, but that's not her fault. Her version of it is fantastic and she shines on it. So I actually think I'm going to change my vote and go with A Whiter Shade of Pale.
Ashleigh, is it going to be Whiter Shade of Pale, or is it going to be Put a Little Love in Your Heart?
I think I'm going to stick with my original vote, which is Put a Little Love in Your Heart. I think that maybe she's not as dominant versus Al Green singing as opposed to something like Sisters Are Doing It, where it's more like equal levels. But it reminds me a bit of like how people would describe Ringo's drumming in the Beatles. Not necessarily like overpowering, but sometimes what you need to do is complement the song and do what's best for the song. So I think it works in that context. It's not like super stand out, but it's a nice complement to what Al Green's doing. I think with The Whiter Shade of Pale, for me, the original Procol Harum version is kind of too iconic in its own category, because they were maybe some like really 60s fans would tell me that they're not. To me, they're kind of a one-hit wonder in terms of that being easily their most prominent song.
Yep.
So A Whiter Shade of Pale by her would need to be, for me, more iconic to really stand up to. You're talking about, like, when it comes to covers, Hurt, Nine Inch Nails, Johnny Cash, both of them are on their own sort of levels. It would need to be more like that for this to impress me to that extent. I would pick it.
Mm-hmm.
Damn, so Derek had pulled me over to his side, and then Ashleigh pulled me back over. I love it when that happens. So we're tied now again, and Todd, the tiebreaker would fall to you. Which one's going forward?
I'm going to go with Whiter Shade of Pale.
All right, Todd's giving it to Whiter Shade of Pale. And that's the end of round one, folks. We're going to reapply our moisturizer in the hopes of looking 17 again. We'll be right back. And we are back for round two of our Best Annie Lennox Song debate. Before we get into the Elite Eight, I want our panelists to share their social media accounts, as well as the first time they recall being introduced to Annie Lennox. Derek, thank you so much for sponsoring this episode. Thank you so much for just everything you do. Where can people find you, and what else you're working on? How do you become acquainted with Annie?
Yeah, you can find me on Threads and Blue Sky at DRKMKT. I'm not working on anything, just myself as usual. And how did I learn about Annie Lennox? It was definitely radio play. I think it started on more like top 40 radio and then slowly shifted into the 90s into adult contemporary, which we stand adult contemporary on this podcast, as we all know. And that's definitely how I became more acquainted with her newer 90s stuff. And then, like you all, BMG Music got me those CDs for a penny, and I think that's how I got Medusa and then subsequently Diva. So yeah, that's Annie in a nutshell for me.
Yeah, I think it was literally the same, Medusa then Diva for us because of BMG. And I'm still waiting to this day to get the bill for all of those CDs I got from them, because I know there's no way that was legal. Thank you so much. Ashleigh Stiles, welcome back. Ashleigh's a host on Wizard Radio, which is our podcast network over in the UK. You should check them out. Where can people find you? What are you doing? And how did you become acquainted with Annie Lennox?
Well, you can find me there at wizardradio.com and listen to my show Sundays 9 till 10 UK time. You can also find me at ashstyles97 on Twitter. I mean to keep getting my Blue Sky set up. Haven't done that yet. In terms of how I found out about Annie Lennox, mostly just my parents' iPod. I was still sort of in that generational bracket where it was before iPhones, so it was their iPod. They were big, all things 80s for music for them. So that became then my musical taste. A lot of Bowie, a lot of Eurythmics, a lot of stuff like that. So that was my sort of lead in, really.
That's what we say. You were raised right, because you were given the proper musical introduction. So thank you so much. Todd, where can people find you? What are you doing? How'd you become introduced to Annie Lennox?
So you can find me at Todd Rezsnyak on like Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, I guess. Not really on Twitter much after the whole Elon thing. So
yep, that'll happen.
what I'm working on right now, kind of in between some stuff. But honestly, like I said, the I've Got a Life song as an anthem for me is sparking some creativity. It's sparking some desire to go out and, mess some stuff up. So we'll see what's coming here in the next few months for me. In terms of how I got introduced to Annie, I mean, you know as well as I do, and it's very mirrors Derek. I heard obviously some of the Eurythmics songs on radio in the 80s, and then good old BMG and Columbia House music clubs or whatever got Medusa, and then we got Diva. And I remember being so excited for when Peace came out, because at that point, Medusa had only been out for a few years. I didn't even know that they had broken up. And then I heard that they had a reunion album, and I was so excited. So, I got Peace basically as soon as it came out and just wore that record down.
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming on back. So the best place to follow us is on Blue Sky at gpcd.bsky.social or at Great Pop Culture Debate on Instagram or TikTok. You should also make sure to subscribe to our page on YouTube, where we're now posting the video for these debates. And guess what? We're now on Twitch at GPCD Twitch, so you can watch us play video games. We're figuring that out. It's very new. Bear with us. But what you really need to do is to sign up for our weekly newsletter newsletter, new every Tuesday at noon. It tells you about what's coming out in pop culture that week. Sign up by finding the link on this episode at greatpopculturedebate.com or via our link tree on any of our social media accounts. I will go a little bit further back than Todd since I'm older, and I distinctly remember watching the Sweet Dreams video on MTV in my youth and being like, what is even happening here? I think you have to acknowledge androgyny. I think that Annie Lennox was a huge impact on music videos and style and gender culture worldwide because of that video. I'm sure they would have been big just based on the music, but I do think that video in particular, it really was like a slap to the face to the world to be like, nope, we're not doing this anymore. And it allowed women to be a lot more free in their expression of gender in music videos and beyond. So always a trendsetter, always an icon. So let's get into round 2 so we can cut off all our hair, cross-dress, and sexually confuse an entire generation of music video viewers. To my point, the majority of the panel continues to think one-seed Sweet Dreams should get its just desserts in the final 4, but Derek refuses to leave the nest of 2-seed Little Bird. Derek, tell us why you wish you had the strength to fly Little Bird away from here. I will hold my head up and move Sweet Dreams along. I'll go ahead and go first because we haven't really talked about Sweet Dreams yet. So this song was their big breakthrough smash. It was not the first song that they released, but this was the one that really got people's attention. It has been inducted to the Grammy Hall of Fame. It is number 356 in Rolling Stone's 500 Greatest Songs of All Time. The U.S. Library of Congress added it to the National Recording Registry. It's a big effing deal, this song. And Lennox said that she wrote it feeling hopeless and nihilistic, which is so interesting to me because I never got that feeling listening to the song. It feels powerful and almost like you're scheming and you're trying to get ahead. But like, this is what Annie Lennox and the Eurythmics do so well. They take these really depressing topics and they turn them into these bops. There's something really cool about that, and I think they're better than just about anybody. This song is when the duo really started to experiment with synth pop sounds. They were both in their crappy little attic apartment fiddling around with synths, and they got the duetting synths going, and they're just like, oh wow, that's really cool. And then it just kind of spiraled from there. It is also apparently one of the most misheard lyrics in British history. People think she's saying sweet dreams are made of cheese, and I have to say, like, game recognized game, because I have often felt that to be true. So, Derek, talk to us about Little Bird.
Yeah, I mean, I spoke about Little Bird initially in the previous round. Again, it holds a special place in my heart because it's part of her solo career. I know that Sweet Dreams is going to move ahead. I really don't have a ton else to say about Little Bird other than it would get my vote here because, in my opinion, Sweet Dreams, as amazing as it is the Bohemian Rhapsody of this argument. And I think it's the expected answer, frankly.
I don't disagree with that. Ashleigh, is it going to be Little Bird or Sweet Dreams for you?
Sweet Dreams. Quick shout out to Little Bird. It's a good song.
Yeah.
But I think, we can throw around the word iconic, and we probably will a lot as we get towards the end of the bracket, but you can't ever use it enough for this song. This didn't just, bring them to the stage. This, as you were saying, is on the list of Rolling Stone's 500 Greatest Songs. This cemented them in history. This is the one where if you're talking about the Eurythmics in 50 years' time from now, you're going to be talking about Sweet Dreams are made of this.
Absolutely. Todd, is it going to be Sweet Dreams or is it going to be Little Bird?
It's going to be Sweet Dreams. One quick question, though. Can anybody explain to me, maybe I'm dumb, but can anybody explain to me the cows in the Sweet Dream video? Like, I just don't understand that video.
Yeah.
And as a very young child, I was so confused by what I saw on the screen. Annie Lennox looking like a man, cows, close-ups that turned purple. I don't understand. Can anybody explain?
Ashleigh has an answer.
I apparently do. So I, do a lot of research for the things that I go in on. And for this, I have the Wikipedia page up open for Sweet Dreams. There's a quote from David Stewart on the music video. Quote, "So we mocked up a record company boardroom in a studio at Water Street and put up a cow to signify reality." End quote.
Sure.
Take that for what it's worth. The cow signifies reality. I don't know what that means.
Cheese. But... Sweet Dreams are made of cheese. I think it all makes perfect sense. It's a through line.
Yeah.
Yeah, dairy folks. Okay. So that sounds like we are going to move Sweet Dreams into the final 4. But I will say, I don't think Little Bird has been done on a lip sync for your life on Drag Race. And that is a shame because it is tailor-made for that. It builds, and it's ecstatic at the end. Like, give the people what they want, RuPaul. All right. Next, the panel is split between 2-seed Would I Lie to You and 1-seed Sisters Are Doing It for Themselves. I did not know how this was going to go out, so I'm going to go around the horn. I'd like to start. Todd, is it Would I Lie to You or Sisters Are Doing It for Themselves?
I like both these songs, obviously, but I gotta say, it's really impressive to have Annie Lennox going toe for toe with Aretha. She holds her own and then some, which is no small feat for sure. And Sisters Doing It for Themselves that's a straight up it's an anthem for sure. And I gotta go with Sisters Are Doing It for Themselves.
Derek, Would I Lie to You or Sisters Are Doing It for Themselves?
I hear everything that Todd just said, and I'm sticking with Would I Lie to You.
Okay. Ashleigh, is it Sisters Are Doing It for Themselves or Would I Lie to You?
I heard everything that Todd said, and I'm agreeing. Sisters Are Doing It.
I think I'm giving it to Sisters Are Doing It for Themselves here as well. I agree with everything that Todd said. We mentioned how Annie is a duet artist's artist, and she's so good at it. And boy, this is two strong Black women, at least in their souls, just going toe-to-toe and hammering it out, and it is awesome. I loved everything about this, including the end where Aretha says, "Thank you, I'll get it myself." Like, it's so good. Iconic. Would I Lie to You is fucking great. Like, that's how strong that this debate is, because Would I Lie to You would be a Final Four for any other artist, and here it is going out at Elite Eight. But I think it's the right decision, and Sisters Are Doing It for Themselves. We'll move into round 3. It's another tie, this time between 2-seed No More I Love Yous and 1-seed Here Comes the Rain Again. Ashleigh, enlist the Umbrella Academy as you speak on Rain Again. Derek, there are monsters inside, and they're voting against No More I Love Yous. Doop-a-doop-a-doop-doop-doop. Ashleigh, please go first.
Sure. So, as I said earlier, this is the other iconic big, Eurythmics song. They had any number of hits, but if you're picking two that are going to be the big ones, this is the other one. It starts with that build, and it's very onomatopoeic in that way. It sounds like the falling of rain with those little drops, and then you get the power of Lennox's voice coming in through immediately. But then in the chorus, it gets more melodic. So you're really getting a sort of a grand tour of everything that Annie Lennox can do on that song. You've got the sort of deeper stuff, the more vocally androgynous stuff, and then you've got the sort of softer bits that come in the chorus. So it's really a showcase for me, I think. Plus the musical side of things is really the best of what the Eurythmics can do, the synth elements in there also.
Great argument. I want to hear from Derek on No More I Love Yous.
So, I mean, these are both titans of her catalog. They are. But they're both from such different eras of Annie's career. And correct me if I'm wrong, we'll have to rewind the tape. I don't know that I heard Annie Lennox's name brought up once in that argument that Ashleigh just gave, because it's so synonymous with Eurythmics rather than just Annie. So for me, No More I Love Yous tips the scale by being important to Annie's 90s work. Despite it being a reimagining of the 1986 track by The Lover Speaks, this is a cover that, just like A Whiter Shade of Pale, feels so incredibly transformed by Annie as to be her own. Contrast this with Here Comes the Rain Again, which, while an incredible song on its own, again, it's overshadowed by her 80s work by Sweet Dreams. So No More I Love Yous was also a bigger chart hit, if you can believe it. It was a global success, which cemented Medusa not just as another album of covers. It showed Annie's kind of ability to breathe new life into songs that were once forgotten. And it showcased kind of like a maturity in her artistry that really blossomed in the 90s. It also has one of her most iconic music videos with a theatricality and a tone that were so indicative of her style, playing with gender in new ways. And finally, she won a Grammy for Best Pop Vocal Performance in 1996 for No More I Love Yous, which cemented this as one of her biggest hits in her very storied career.
Okay, great. Todd, is it going to be No More I Love Yous, or is it going to be Here Comes the Rain Again?
This is really tough for me because, like I said, I have Here Comes the Rain Again as my winning song. And when I think of Annie Lennox in the 80s, I don't think of Sweet Dreams. I think of Here Comes the Rain Again. I feel like Here Comes the Rain Again, like Sweet Dreams was a great kind of introduction, but it felt kind of simplistic in the song structure. Mm-hmm. And I think Ashleigh, really nailed it, talking about how Here Comes the Rain Again feels like more of a more comprehensive kind of composition, where you've got the instrumentation, you've got her voice, they tell a story. It's just so much more complex and mature than, say, Sweet Dreams. So for me, when I think of Annie in the 80s, I think Here Comes the Rain Again. When I think of Annie in the 90s, I think No More I Love Yous. For me, though, I have to say the one that really sticks with me the most is Here Comes the Rain Again. It does.
This is surprising me more than anyone else. I actually am voting for Here Comes the Rain again. And I agree with all the arguments that have been made. I love No More I Love Yous. And I argue that No More I Love Yous is what sold Medusa. And Medusa is what then got people to go back to Diva. Like, if you actually look at her solo career, this song is hugely important for it. It is also like Girls Just Want to Have Fun for Cyndi Lauper. Yes, this is a cover, but had you ever heard the original version of No More I Love Yous? No, I listened to it after the fact. It's not great. This is the definitive version of this song. So the fact that it's a cover doesn't really even hurt me at all. She took this and made it her own. But I think Here Comes the Rain again. Like, I agree with Ashleigh's argument here and Todd's too. Like, of the two of them, I think that is the stronger pick in this particular matchup, because the thing about No More I Love You is it doesn't age terribly well. It sounds very strange and of a time, which was the point when it was released in the 90s, but I don't think it makes a ton of sense now as a song versus Here Comes the Rain Again, which absolutely still slaps. So 3-1, Here Comes the Rain Again will continue into the Final Four. We have one more split decision in round 2, as 1 seed Walking on Broken Glass is in danger of getting cut by 3 seed A Whiter Shade of Pale. I'm going to throw it to the group again. Derek, is it going to be Whiter Shade or is it going to be Broken Glass?
It's going to be Walking on Broken Glass here, for sure.
Okay. Ashleigh, Walking on Broken Glass, or is it going to be Whiter Shade of Pale?
Broken Glass also. I really love that kind of Caribbean-inspired rhythm of the piano. It's really, really fun.
And hilariously, it never occurred to me that that was Caribbean until I was doing my work for this. And I was like, oh my God, it's absolutely Caribbean. Yeah. Isn't that weird?
It reminded me a bit of Fool in the Rain by Led Zeppelin in the same way. It's got that like influence, but then it melds it into something that's its own.
Great point. Todd, is going to be Walking on Broken Glass or Whiter Shade of Pale for you?
I mean, I helped move A Whiter Shade of Pale forward as opposed to Put a Little Love in Your Heart, but it doesn't hold a candle to Walking on Broken Glass, so it's Walking on Broken Glass for me.
Maybe it was not a split decision because I'm also voting for Walking on Broken Glass, which makes it unanimous. We haven't talked about it yet, and I think we need to. So this was actually the third single off of 1992's Diva. This was her first album as a solo artist. This followed Why and Precious, which are both great songs, but this was the breakout hit from that album. And again, specifically, we talked about how Sweet Dreams in that video was essential to launching the Eurythmics as an international act. This video was essential for launching her as a solo act. It is almost like a sequel to Dangerous Liaisons, the movie at the time. It has John Malkovich in it. It has Hugh Laurie from House. They're all dressed up in their finery, and she is just acting the shit out of this as a woman who has been scorned. Her lover's got a new girlfriend she's getting married to, and she's just losing it. It is great. It's a hoot of an episode of a music video, and it launched this song to huge heights. And the song itself is also amazing. That end part of it, where it's like she's just strutting towards the future, and it builds and builds and builds. Oh God, I love it. It just gay dream come true right there. So we will be moving Walking on Broken Glass into the Final Four. And with that, we have our Final Four. We're going to take a quick break because the language is leaving me. I'm telling you, no more I love yous. We'll be right back. And we are back with the Final Four of our Best Annie Lennox song debate. At this point in the show, I like to take a step back and see if it shook out the way I expected it to. I also like to say at this point that no matter which option wins, we're celebrating all of these entries, and I hope nobody gets salty about what comes next. So we have a Final Four of Sweet Dreams Are Made of This, a 1 seed, versus Sisters Are Doing It For Themselves, a 1 seed. Here Comes the Rain Again, a 1 seed, versus Walking on Broken Glass, a 1 seed. That's 2 Eurythmics songs, 1 duet, and 1 solo song. Patreon sponsor Derek, how do we feel about this Final Four?
I think it's probably the right Final Four. Again, they're all 1 seeds, but to me, I would have liked to see more stuff from her solo catalog. I know that we obviously included Eurythmics songs because, again, she's the only vocalist with Eurythmics, and they are so iconic to her early career in the 80s. So it's not surprising to me that the 2 biggest Eurythmics hits are here. I just would have played it a little differently. I don't know.
All right. That's a good point. Todd brought up over the break that he was surprised doing his research that even though we know the Eurythmics and they had all these hits, very few of them in the US were like top 20 hits. They were songs that charted, but like on the lower end of the top 40. So I was curious, Ashleigh, as someone from the UK, how were the Eurythmics received over there compared to the way they were in the US?
So little caveat to say that I was born and raised outside the UK, so my understanding of British pop culture from this period is very much handed down to me from my parents and people I know. But it is an interesting point. I've seen a lot of stuff about like one-hit wonders, especially from the 80s, and the way that the British bands did come over and the way that they didn't come over. I think there's a lot more within Britain about like the Eurythmics and being like a huge, huge band than America. And that's not saying nothing about like that they were very successful in America, but it is the case that they are remembered, I think, maybe not differently, more so here. Annie Lennox is like a big part of that era, like a very significant chunk of the early 80s and the Eurythmics in Britain for that reason. And it doesn't necessarily translate the same way. It is quite interesting.
With that being said, let's get into this debate. So it's Sweet Dreams Are Made of This versus Sisters Are Doing It for Themselves. I would like to start with Todd. Where are you going here?
I got to go Sweet Dreams.
Derek, is it going to be Sweet Dreams or Sisters?
Like I said before, it's the Bohemian Rhapsody of this argument, but it does have to be Sweet Dreams here. It does.
Ashleigh, is it going to be Sweet Dreams or Sisters?
This was a tough one for me, but it is Sweet Dreams. It just, with the force of the song, just punches straight through like that.
Yeah, are we sending the sisters back to the kitchen? Is that what we're doing? Sisters, we want you to keep doing it for yourselves, but not in this debate. So we will be moving Sweet Dreams into the final two. Here Comes the Rain Again versus Walking on Broken Glass. Ashleigh, where are you going to go on this one?
This is also very tough. I think everybody said that this is the correct final four. I would tend to agree. I think I'm going to stick with Here Comes the Rain Again. I'm willing to hear arguments otherwise. Again, I think it's just, the iconic versus the iconic. And that does mean it's two Eurythmics songs against each other, which I do appreciate. We have to consider the broader catalogue. I would also say, though, that if we were doing, and maybe this isn't exactly an apt comparison, if we were doing Best of Robert Plant, he did have a solo career. He did have hits in his solo career. But you wouldn't cut out Led Zeppelin for the reason of wanting to necessarily focus on his solo career. So sure. I'm kind of fine with being two Eurythmics at the end. I think it's just the more, I don't know. I hate to say iconic again. I think it's a bit more, in that sense, iconic, but yeah, happy for both.
I'll give you this comparison. If we were doing a George Michael song debate, which, spoiler, we are absolutely working on a George Michael debate, we would include Wham in there. And would I be mad if two Wham songs were the final two? I would not be mad because, iconic songs all throughout the career, but honestly, you just can't deny the power of some of those earlier songs. Derek, for you, is it going to be Here Comes the Rain Again, or is it going to be Walking on Broken Glass?
No, this one's difficult because Here Comes the Rain Again would be a stronger contender against Sweet Dreams. I think we would actually have a real debate, and I think that's probably how this is going to go. For me, Walking on Broken Glass would be my pick because it's from her solo career. It's probably one of the biggest hits from her solo career in the 90s. Do I think Walking on Broken Glass is a better song to go up against Sweet Dreams in the final? No, I don't. So I'm looking ahead and my heart says Walking on Broken Glass. My head says Here Comes the Rain Again. So I'm going to go with my head here.
That sounds like a Eurythmics song right there. My heart is going one, my head is another. Todd, is it going to be Here Comes the Rain Again, or is it going to be Walking on Broken Glass?
I have Here Comes the Rain Again to win, so Here Comes the Rain Again.
I would vote for Walking on Broken Glass here. I hear everything that you just said. Is it partially because I want to have a solo track in the final two? Yeah, that's absolutely factoring into my thought line here. But I also, I love Walking on Broken Glass. It does that amazing thing that we alluded to before. It is a really difficult, emotional topic that is set to a jaunty little ditty. And this one is not just jaunty little ditty. Musically, it's brilliant. It's coming in with the pizzicato, we said Caribbean influence. It's got the rococo kind of video with it. It's got the passion in this voice. She's going from one extreme to the next so fluidly. And it is just, I'm sorry, I'm going to use this term. It is just so cunt at the end when she is strutting. It is so come on, mama. It is powerful. It is, I am done with this man, but it's free for Here Comes the Rain Again. So we have a final two of Sweet Dreams Are Made of This versus Here Comes the Rain Again. I would like to go smack in the middle with Derek, our Patreon sponsor. Where are you going?
This one's difficult for me because, again, I think they're both fantastic songs. I think they're both iconic for Annie and Eurythmics in the 80s. My head says it is supposed to be Sweet Dreams. My heart says Here Comes the Rain Again. I think in this case, I am going to go with my heart and say Here Comes the Rain Again.
Delicious. Ashleigh, is it going to be Sweet Dreams or Here Comes the Rain again?
I'm going to go with ahead and say Sweet Dreams. I think it's the one where, I may have made this point before, I think this is the one that she will be remembered for. Not to say that she won't be remembered for any of the others, but this is the one that is just going to be chiseled into stone when the cockroach people find what remains of our culture in a million years' time. It will be this music video of her in the suit, cropped hair, fist on the table, boom.
With the cow.
With the cow. Yeah.
And
Which
they
would
will
be very
wonder what that
valuable.
meant as well, and they will not know any more than we
The
do.
cockroaches would be like, the fuck? Yeah.
It all makes so much more sense now. I just thought that they were working at a farm. They're dancing in the pasture with their bass violins or whatever amongst the cows.
Yeah, amazing. Todd, is it going to be Sweet Dreams or Here Comes the Rain again?
It is tough. And I think that most people would, if you were to poll them, they would say, like, what's the most iconic Annie Lennox song? They would immediately say Sweet Dreams. But I also think that a lot of people, especially here stateside, I don't think that they've taken the time to really get to know the Annie Lennox catalog. And just a plug for her in general, I challenge people that are listening or watching this to go back and listen to the Eurythmics catalog and the Annie Lennox catalog. You can put together a playlist of easily probably 4 hours of songs that you're not going to skip a single one.
Yep.
And you can put together playlists that will match any frame of mind that you have. You want something somber for a rainy Saturday afternoon, you've got it. If you want something that you can kind of go to a like a jazzercise class, a Zumba class, you can do it.
Jazzercise.
But the point is that, again, this is just a plug for Annie, but I mean, she's got the range, she's got the material. I challenge anybody who doesn't really know Annie Lennox to really dive into the catalog. You're going to find some stuff that you really enjoy. That being said, I think that while Sweet Dreams is her most iconic song for very good reason, I think the better song between these two is Here Comes the Rain Again. That, to me, that song has stuck with me more than Sweet Dreams has, for sure.
To Todd's point, you don't have to make a playlist because I've already made one for you. It has all 16 of these songs as well as all the submissions in the missed songs. There's going to be at least 40 songs on there. You can find it on this episode page at greatpopculturedebate.com, and I encourage you to do so. Gosh, this is tough. I did not vote for Here Comes the Rain Again in round one. I actually voted for something else. I think Sweet Dreams has the primacy argument, and it is a really powerful statement in pop culture. But which is the better song? Ooh, I don't know. I think I'm going to give it to Rain Again. I just think it's a more interesting winner. And Sweet Dreams is the most classic of the two, but which one's a better song? Here Comes the Rain Again. So there you have it, folks. Our pick for the best Annie Lennox song is Here Comes the Rain Again. Do you agree? Do you find yourself asking, why? Tell us how you really feel by leaving a comment on this episode at greatpopculturedebate.com or find us on Blue Sky or Instagram. While you're there, make sure you subscribe and follow the podcast. You can hear about what new debates are coming soon, vote in open polls, decide which topics we tackle next. I want to say thank you to my panel. Thank you, Derek, so much for sponsoring this episode. And thank you to Ashleigh and Todd for coming back to join us. And thank you for listening. If you love what you heard, consider supporting us on Patreon, where you can get even more exclusive content and you get episodes a whole day early. We hope you have a good one. And remember, everyone is entitled to their wrong opinion. Ugh, here comes Lorraine again.